converted man here. Ah, yes. Sometimes the thing gets stuck and you just have to whack it a few times to get it started. You know what I'm saying? All right. Well, Redeemed Zoomer, yes, that guy that got infamous for not debunking any atheist arguments within a very short time frame, has at it again, but this time presenting arguments for God in 10 minutes. All of them. All of them. So all I have to do is point out all the logical fallacies in these arguments, and I'm done. That's it. I won't have to make any more videos. I'll still make videos, but technically speaking, if I show that there's one or more logical fallacies in any of these arguments and or at all of these arguments, then that's it. The case for God is dead, right? Because here's how it goes for those of you who don't know. Maybe you already know, so I'm sorry if I'm covering things you know, but in logic, the purpose, if you will, of analyzing any argument is to find out if there is or isn't logical fallacies. If there isn't, then the conclusion follows and it is valid and sound. If the structure is correct and there's no fallacies, then it's valid and sound. The structure is the validness, the soundness is, that all the things are true. So, if you find one fallacy, that's it. That argument is done for, and you need to fix that problem. Unlike other systems, like, say, mathematics, where if you get the problem wrong, that's it. It's just the wrong answer. Within logic, if you get your argument wrong, that does not mean that your conclusion is therefore wrong. In fact, there's a fallacy to cover this called the fallacy, in which you proclaim that the argument having fallacies in it means that the conclusion is false. You cannot say that with logic. All you can say is that the argument's broken and it needs to be fixed. And that the conclusion, therefore, is one that we should hold in judgment. Or, as I put it, we should be skeptical of the conclusion. So, by pointing out any fallacies in any of these arguments, the thing that I am doing here is simply saying your argument's broken, fix it. And the conclusion that you draw from these arguments, if they are indeed broken, should be one that we are skeptical of. That means we don't know if it's true, we don't know if it's false, we don't judge if it's true or false. We hold it in judgment until a better argument is presented, an argument without flaws, or until we have empirical evidence or a repeatable test. Because if we had either of those things, if we had empirical evidence or repeatable test, we wouldn't need an argument at all. We just have the proof. Here it is. Here's what I'm talking about to see on, displayed. And then you can investigate that phenomenon further. But when it comes to God, all we ever have is arguments. So we don't have evidence. We have things inside the arguments that might be pieces of or parts of or evidence, but the argument in and of itself is not evidence. All right, so this is a 9-minute and 30-second video. So this is only going to take me 10 days to analyze. Here we go.
Just Sunday school. You probably think that if you believe in God, you should be able to explain why. Luckily, Christians and other philosophers have been answering this question for over 2,000 years. Evidentialism tries to argue for God by giving evidence of supernatural events. For example, a lot of Christians think the resurrection of Christ can be historically proven because there were a lot of eyewitnesses who all died for their faith, and generally people don't die for something they know isn't true.
Based on what criteria do you say that, though? This has been a long running statement made, but is it true? That is to say, is there any proof to the idea that people don't die for things that they know are not true? Or is this just something that is said to be true without any support for it? If there's zero support to show that it's true, then we have to doubt that it is true. It could be true, but we have to doubt it. You don't have any support for it. Also, all the people that supposedly saw this event are all part of the story which you're trying to show is true. Pointing at the story and proclaiming that the people in the story believe what happened in the story is circular reasoning. It would be nice if we had a modern day miracle to point to and say, well, there you go, that's what a miracle is. Then we'd have something to investigate at least. But that has never been shown to be a thing, even a little bit. Miracles are never tested, they're never demonstrably demonstrated, and so all they turn out to be in the end, when they are investigated, are mundane claims that were mistaken to be miraculous. So, to date, there has not been any proof of any miracle event. And if it happened in the past, then it's lost to the past. Because if you're going to accept this miracle event, then you must accept all miracle events. Yours doesn't get any special exceptions. But historians don't do this. Whenever anybody claims that something is miraculous or magical, that is automatically categorized as mythology. So, evidentialism, then, is based on pointing at absolutely nothing, declaring it's a miracle, and then claiming that that proves God. Not a very good argument.
Sometimes people give evidence of supernatural things like demonic possessions, where people start speaking in languages they don't know.
Ah, yes. Now, he showed this book before, Demonic Foes. This guy, Richard Gallagher, he's the, quote, foremost expert on demons in the world. Now, I don't know where that quote comes from. That's just what it says about him. I don't know how you get that qualification, but apparently he has it somehow. And none of the things that he writes about in that book, without ever having read that book, I can say without a doubt, nothing in there has been substantially proven to be a thing ever. At best, what he might have is a bunch of people that are telling stories that he rounded up and got together and edited into a book. At best. But if you can't show the chain of custody for those stories, then for all I know, he's making up everything whole cloth. And I suspect that's probably what he did. But some of it might be true. His 25 years as a psychiatric investigation, yeah, none of that stuff is real. So there aren't demons, they're not real. And that book is not evidence of anything.
Or near-death experiences where people see things outside their body that they shouldn't have been able to see.
NDEs have been demonstrably demonstrated over and over again to be what we would expect the brain to do as it nears death. The shutting down of your systems usually results in some sort of different effects inside your mind, and typically means your vision goes out, and that's why you see this light tunnel. And in almost every, in fact, in every case that anyone has an NDE, it is always of a religion that they are either part of or know about. It is never of a religion that they've never heard about. And, of course, This is a case of looking at the hits and ignoring all the misses. Plenty of people have almost died and been resuscitated and have had no experience at all. So, why are we then singling out only the people that have experiences to look at? Well, what about all these people that didn't have any experiences? Wouldn't it be fair to say that if that is the majority, that that is the norm? Well, there's nothing to report on there. There's nothing special. There's not a story to tell. I died on the table and I saw nothing, and they brought me back. That's it. Okay. Not much of a story. So nobody's going to write about it. It's not going to be news. But if you, oh, yeah, I saw this thing. And of course, how do we know that? Hospitals have, some of them, put controlled tests in place to see if anyone could actually verify a out of body experience. They put objects in a box on a high shelf, and nobody that's in the OR knows what's in there. But if you were hovering above your body, you could easily look inside that box and identify what was in there. Some places put a piece of paper on the ceiling with some writing on it facing facing upwards so that you can't see it from where you're lying down. And if you could leave your body and be a spirit, then you could look through the ceiling and see what was written on there. And in both cases, 0% of every single time that anyone has had an NDE in those hospitals, none of them have ever reported what was in the controlled area. In fact, I am aware of only one time where it was claimed that somebody was able to see something outside of their body that was verified, and it was the serial numbers on some machine. The serial numbers turned out to not match the machine and match a different machine of the same model. And also, the people interviewed were interviewed long after the facts. And also, the guy turned out to be lying. But for a while, it seemed like a really great thing. Yeah. So no, so we don't have anything verified at all, or maybe didn't turn out to be lying. But there have been cases where people were lying. Some kid that had a whole movie made about his NDE, and he later admitted that it was all made up. So they're not a thing. They don't show anything. They have never been demonstrably demonstrated to be anything. So that's not evidence of anything either.
The moral argument is basically objective morality is only real if God is real, but objective morality is real, so therefore God is real.
Oh, God. Oh, man. All right. So, let me just
only real if God is real, but objective morality is real, so therefore.
Okay. Objective morality isn't a thing. So you're just wrong about that. You'd have to demonstrate that P2 is true. Okay. Good and bad are real. They are real words that we have really come up with, but we made them. Okay. They're concepts that exist in our head. Good and bad are real, and we don't need a God to make that so. And if there's a God, God could always change its mind. And this doesn't deal with the dilemma of, is it good because God says it's good, or is it good on its own? If it's good because God says it's good, well, then God could change its mind and say that it's bad. What's stopping God from changing its mind one day to the other? Also, this doesn't tell us which God there is, neither does the other argument. In fact, none of these arguments will tell us which God it is, but that's okay. As long as there's some God, that's all that really matters, right? So P2 is just unsupported. And so is P1, because you would have to demonstrably demonstrate that these concepts that we have are not real if there isn't a God. But the concepts that we have are real because we created the concepts and we say what the concept means. And we can get really detailed about what those words mean. What does it mean good? What does it mean bad? Well, it's somewhat subjective. And also, it depends what you're talking about in the context and a whole lot of other things because it's natural language. How about this? Hurts or doesn't hurt? That's more straightforward. But you don't need God to explain pain. And maybe, just maybe, you don't need God to explain morals at all. DCT, Divine Command Theory, is probably the worst. No, it is the worst ethical system that you could have. Because you're just blindly following what you think God says. This argument fails. Both premise 1 and premise 2 are unsupported, bald assertions. Therefore, this argument fails. The other one failed because they're bald assertions as well. They're just nothing. He said people point to supernatural stuff to try to say that there's a God, and the examples of supernatural things that he offered up weren't actually supernatural things. So the argument there failed as well. Then he's gonna say this. Okay.
Or God is real. Question: is cannibalism good or bad?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I just watched this documentary on this guy that is a cannibal, done fairly recently, and in their culture, they view him as a spiritual guru of sorts. He puts the ashes of the dead on him. He eats the dead bodies or parts of the dead bodies and does these rituals. And the people who are part of this religion will give him parts of the deceased so that he can eat them and do his rituals, because that makes them holy, and it has to do with the spirituality of their tribe. So in their culture, it is absolutely good. Oops. I guess morality isn't objective then, is it? So, yeah, kind of a problem. And I'll link to that that documentary in the description below. All right. Cannibal. Okay. So I think that there has been medical reasons why you wouldn't want to eat a human brain. That's been shown to have negative consequences for people. I'm not sure about eating other bits of humans, whether that's medically advisable or not. I suspect that you run risks of various different illnesses from doing so. It might seem distasteful, but if there's nothing that harms you physically, then I have no objection to it, as long as you're not eating people while they're still alive, unless they wanted you to do that and everything was consensual and, fully allowed, etc. In fact, there was a couple of comedians or something, I believe they were British presenters that cut off a little piece of each of themselves and then cooked it, and the other person ate it. So they ate each other. And it's just a stunt that they did. I I I wouldn't do it, but I don't see it as either. It is neither good nor bad. My answer is none of the above. What now? See, I've picked it is neither good nor bad. It is both and neither. It depends upon the culture, it depends upon the person and the context, like all things do. So I've completely destroyed your whole thing, your whole example here. You should have gone for something much easier, but you screwed up.
I think it's good. I think it's bad. I think it's good. I think it's bad. Which one of them is correct?
Yes, they're both correct. The person that thinks it's good is correct. To them, it's good. The person that thinks it's incorrect is correct. To them, it's bad. That's how that works.
Now, I'm assuming you agree with this one. If you don't, please stay away from me. But
Aw, are you scared that somebody's gonna eat you? Come on, man. Get over yourself. Not that tasty. Besides, as an atheist, I only eat newborn baby. Okay.
how do you know that he's actually correct? How do you know that these aren't just different opinions?
You don't.
Our little friend here can only be objectively correct if there's a supreme authority that says cannibalism is bad.
Okay. That's nice. But what if the supreme authority says cannibalism is good? And whose supreme authority exactly? And how do you know that the supreme authority is saying that? And what about that supreme authority saying that makes it true? This is an appeal to authority and nothing more.
And that supreme authority is what we would call God. The cosmological argument is basically that something must have caused everything else.
And I already covered that a while ago, but yeah, that's nice. You don't know that that's the case. Might be the case. We've got let's see, radioactive decay might not be caused at all. Yes, I was just recently informed that that's a better example than the example I've been using. Nonetheless, so there, we don't know. We don't know, and this is just asserting that we do know, but we don't. But even if you had to say, sure, it was caused by something else, why would it be God again? Oh, because that's what you think it is, not for any logical reason, no.
Everything that happens has a cause, and that has a cause, and that has a cause. So where does this go? Does this go on forever? That's
sure, it absolutely could. And there's nothing that you could say that no, it's not possible for it to go on forever. Because yes, absolutely it could. There's and if you think that God always existed, then yes, it goes on forever because your cause is infinitely there. So you still have a forever, it's just a different type of forever.
That's not possible. At some point, there needs to be a first cause of everything else.
Of course it's possible. There's nothing to show that it's impossible. And the cosmological argument has time and again refused to change to fix that problem and to show that it's impossible. And of course, it relies on the compositional fallacy. The parts of the universe, the parts of reality that we know about are caused, broadly speaking, except for maybe radioactive decay. We don't, maybe that just happens because, and there's no real cause to it. It just starts doing it. But that doesn't mean that the whole does that either. So we can dismiss and be skeptical of the cosmological argument due to the one fallacy of the parts in the whole, the compositional fallacy. But of course, it makes multiple fallacies because you just said infinity is impossible, even though you haven't proven that. You just asserted it without any argument at all, making that another bald assertion. Man, you really love bald assertions. That's like several times you've had nothing but assertions.
There needs to be an unmoved mover, an uncaused causer, an unchanged changer. It needs
And that's extraordinarily incoherent and also impossible, because the thing itself has to cause itself to do things. So the infinity still goes on indefinitely, and there is no end to that rabbit hole. But you don't know anything about how the brain works or how the mind of this thing works, and these are all special cases made, which is special pleading. That's all you have for your God. There is lots and lots of special pleading required to get to all those assertions that you have made without any proof. More bald assertions.
to be eternal, because if it ever starts or stops existing, that's change, and it can't do that. It needs to be
Okay, if it can't change, then how can it produce anything at all? Because that would be a change. So, which is it? Is it unchanging and unchangeable, therefore it can't do anything? Because if it did something, that's different. That's a change. Well, it's not a change to it. Doesn't matter. It changed things. So, why would it change anything ever then? Incoherent nonsense.
outside the universe, because everything in the universe is caused.
Outside the universe. What the bleep is that? What does that mean? What? How does any of that? How does that work?
It also needs to be all powerful, because if it can't be moved, but it can move anything else, that means it's all powerful. And
why does that mean that? Being an unmoved mover means you're all powerful? So bulldozer is all powerful because I can't move it? Is that how that works? I don't know. None of this matters, because none of this is supported by anything at all. So, no to all this.
And this is what we would call God. I don't get it. Okay, let's make it even harder then. Everything is a mixture of act, meaning what it is, and potency, meaning what it could be.
Now we've just gone incoherent times, I don't know, 9,001. Good job.
For example, a baby actually is alive, and it could be an adult. An apple actually is red, and it has the potency to be eaten.
Unless the apple is green,
So if you eat an apple, you're actualizing its potency to be eaten. But you also are a mixture of act and potency. For example, you have the potency to be strong, but you're not. Anytime something changes you, it's actualizing a potency in you.
And your arguments have the potential and potency to be logical and sound, but they're not.
Anytime a change happens, you have one thing actualizing another, but you can't go back forever, so eventually you need to go back to an unactualized actualizer,
who then wouldn't have the potency to be anything, so it's pure actuality that is not actually actualized in its potency, because its potency isn't a thing, and therefore it couldn't do anything. And also this requires tons of special pleading to make it even possible, and that's just logically fallacious. But what else is new?
which we call God. God is the being that's pure act, meaning he is everything that he possibly could be. This means he must be eternal, because if he's not eternal, that means he has the potential to not exist. But there is no potential in God, so that means God must always exist.
There's no potential in God. I agree with that. There's no potential. That means it can't make anything either.
Also, if God is everything he could be, he's also all-powerful, because he cannot change.
Then he's not all-powerful. Because if you were all-powerful, then you could change.
And that means nothing else could possibly do anything to God. This
Except for sin. Sin really hurts God's feelings. Aw.
Argument's the most complicated. It's originally from Aristotle, and it's also used by Thomas Aquinas in Summa Contra Gentiles. Pascal's wager is much...
Oh, no. Pascal's wager is a non-argument. It's pretend that there's a God, because if God cares about you, then and wants you to pretend that it exists, and it's all about just like, well, maybe it's true, and shouldn't you wager on if it's true or not? But we'll go through the stupid wager again.
simpler, and it's more of a thought experiment than an argument.
Exactly. It's not even an argument. So why include it here? You said arguments for God, not
say you're an atheist, and atheism turns out to be correct. Nothing happens after you die. Well, then you don't really gain or lose anything. It's just kind of neutral for you. But let's say you're an atheist and it turns out you're wrong and God is real, then it could be very bad for you.
Why? Why would it be that? See, that assumes certain things about God. That assumes certain things about God, you nitwit. Ah, man. Okay, so, all right. Let me get an MS Paint here. Let's see. All right, let's see. Alright, and then I'll fix this too, because there is no afterlife, because that's all we're really talking about here. Turns out you were right. Okay. All right. Almost there. Okay, let's see. Where's my MS Paint? It is there. Okay. All right. So if you're an atheist and there's no afterlife, and then you were just right, but you won't know that because there's no you, and oh well, sucks to be us. All right. Actually, forget about being an atheist. If there's no afterlife, there's no afterlife. The end. If God is real, okay, cool. Yay, that's nice. Now what? Right? Because in order for this to matter, God also has to, one, want us to believe in it. And two, punish us for not doing that. Okay, so those are two more things that God has to do, right? So that actually means if there's a God that doesn't care if you don't believe in it, right? And you don't believe in it, then you're an atheist and you still have no consequences. So there's a God that cares, God that doesn't care, a God that cares but will not punish, a God that doesn't care, that cares about your non-belief. Okay, so look, there's like 4 gods now, right? So basically you have to wager not only that God cares about your beliefs, but also will punish you, etc. And but there's so many more gods possible. It could be that God cares but won't punish you. It could be that God doesn't care and won't punish you. It could be that God is the God of the skeptics and will only reward those who don't believe in it. Uh-oh, now what? Best you better believe that. And finally, this is not a valid wager, and I've demonstrated this many, 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 many times. And one person almost took me up on the offer, but backed away. Because I said if he took it, that he wanted me to convert to Christianity if he did it. And I said the whole world will convert to Christianity if you do it. And he didn't do it. But I was just making claims about the thing. Because that's all this is. It's just an empty claim with nothing to prove that it's true. It's bait and switch. But the thing is, why should you believe in God? This is nothing more than an appeal to consequence. If you're wrong, something bad will happen. Therefore, you can't be wrong. Right? If you don't believe in this, then punishment. That's an appeal to consequence, not a logical argument. But what else is new?
Now let's say you believe in God and it turns out atheism is correct. Well, then you still don't gain or lose anything. It's just neutral. But if you believe in God and God is real, then you could gain everything.
But if you believe in the wrong God, then you're still punished. So that leaves another square that wasn't put into that chart. So man, that chart's just missing like at least 5 gods and a whole bunch of stuff, right? So it'd be like, it's just, let's see, let's see. Let's see, wrong God. Let's see, God of the skeptics. It's just so ridiculous how stupid this wager is. I don't know why people still use it. It's just so broken. Let's see. God doesn't care. All right. Right. Okay, let me get that back on screen here. Oopsie. Here we go. Okay, so it's more like this. Yeah? So the atheism is correct, whatever. Let's just say there's no afterlife, because atheism being correct doesn't make any goddamn sense. No afterlife. Even if there's a God, the thing is, that's another category too. If there's a God, but there's no afterlife, then it really doesn't matter if you believe in it or not, does it? But if it's the wrong God, you could lose everything. If it's the God of the skeptics, you could lose everything. If God doesn't care, maybe you'll gain everything, but you'll also maybe gain everything anyways because it doesn't care. So, yeah, so it seems to me that there's more conditions where it works out that not believing is in your favor than it does to believe. Because you could be wrong, and you probably are wrong. And so that's bad. And but it's all an appeal to consequence without any anything to show that it's true. So more bald assertions, and of course the appeal to consequence and appeal to fear, and you have to believe a lot of things for it to even work. And so yeah, it fails. I have a video on it. I've done this before, but whatever.
So between these two possibilities, which one do you want to bet on?
I bet on the truth, which is I don't believe in God, and an appeal to fear isn't going to make me change my mind. I can't just bet on there might be a God and I hope I get the right one. And also, I'm doing this out of pure fear for my immortal life that I have no proof of. That's completely insane. I care about the truth. And God would know that. So
This one gives you a much better chance, so it's better for you to believe in God. The teleological argument says that stuff in the universe seems to have a purpose, so that means the universe must have had a designer. If you found a machine lying around, you would assume that somebody designed the machine. So the teleological argument tries to argue that the universe works like a machine, so somebody must have designed the universe.
and that completely fails on every single possible way. Appearance of design isn't proof of design. But what the bleep's up with the black holes? What's their purpose? Are they the cosmic vacuum cleaners? What's the supernova? What's the purpose of that? Asteroids and meteorites? What's the purpose of them? What's the purpose of a planet without any life on it? I mean, they're pretty, they're cool, but what's the purpose of them? What is purpose of Pluto? What is the purpose of Pluto? Please tell me.
Things in nature, like the human cell or the ecosystem of the world, are very complex and they work like a machine. Now, Darwinian evolution can explain why that is, but there's also...
Yeah, and well, it's not even Darwinian evolution. You're way out of date. It's just biological evolution. Why are you bringing it up if it can be explained?
also things Darwinian evolution can't explain, like the 4 constants of the universe. There are physical constants.
That's because evolution wouldn't be applicable to the universe, ya moronic nitwit. Ya nitwit. Goodness gracious. That's cosmology. Biology doesn't explain the universe. Well, the purpose of a duck, if you could explain that, you might just be quackers. Back to the video.
Like the gravitational constant and the electron charge, the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force, that are perfectly fine-tuned, such that if they were even the slightest bit different, the entire universe would immediately collapse in on itself.
Wrong. Actually, those things can be wildly different, and the universe would be just fine. So, also, there is not been a model to demonstrate that a universe could not actually sustain itself if you change those values. So, until you come up with a model that demonstrates that this is true, I don't believe you. And as far as I know, nobody's done that yet. I don't even know if they have a model for our current universe, let alone other universes. But I like to respond to this with, if things were different, things would be different. If it wasn't a universe, then there wouldn't be a universe. But he acts as if you change any of those by any degree, that would be the end of things. But that's a lie. Because there's a great gradient of those things that you could change and still have a universe. Let's see. Gravitational constant. What's it have to be for a universe to exist? Let's see. We don't even know what the thing is. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Well, that doesn't really tell me. Oh, maybe ChatGPT would know. I don't know, man. Okay, let's see. In the context of the universe, the value of G is crucial in cosmology. the exact value of G doesn't dictate whether a universe can exist or not. I'm happy with that, so he's wrong. I'm good with that. I'm good with ChatGPT saying he's wrong. I'm just gonna say no, you're wrong. And also, I'm saying that because he hasn't shown that he's right. He's just saying that this stuff is true and hoping that you don't look it up at all, not even a little. So I'd like to see the peer-reviewed publications that say that this is true. But when I have looked it up in depth, more than just ChatGPT in it, which I'm doing for convenience of my sanity, it seems that there are a wide variety of gravitational constants you could have, and the universe could be here just fine. So it's not that if you change it a little bit, the universe would just go boom, you're a liar. So this guy's just not right. He's lying. He's not telling the truth. He's wrong, making this argument wrong. Just, it's not true. But who cares even if there is fine-tuning in the way that he suggests? That doesn't mean the universe is designed.
Or even the slightest bit different, the entire universe would immediately collapse in on itself. The ontological argument says God exists because of the way he is. Bruh. No, seriously.
The greatest pizza exists there, and people, of course, in the comments are going after this one because it's one of the dumber ones. Like it really is. If you can think it, then it must exist. That's what this argument boils down to, and it's nothing but pure base, bald assertions, and also requires you to believe that existence is greater than non-existence. And I mean, like, I like existing, but is it greater? I don't know how the hell you would measure that. But go ahead, tell us about the broken argument.
God is defined as that than which nothing greater can be conceived.
Yes, so you're just defining things into existence. Okay, Laud is that which nothing greater can be conceived. Lobster, original deity. Laud. Yes, Laud. You know, the lobsterist. Yeah. Okay.
That means God must be all-powerful, because being all-powerful is greater than having limited power.
According to you?
God must be all-knowing, because being all-knowing is greater than having limited knowledge. God must be all-good, because being all-good is greater than being flawed. And
why? Why wouldn't being all bad be better? These are just completely subjective.
And God must exist, because existing is greater than not existing.
There it is. Told you. And yes, you could replace God with lobster, Laud. You could replace it with pizza, and it doesn't work because you can't just will things into existence. Me having $1 million is defined as the greatest thing that I can think of. Well, okay, so it's let's see, what's the world debt? Okay, me having $304 trillion is the greatest conceivable amount of money that I can think of. But it's greater still if that's actually true. Therefore, I must have $304 trillion. And if you're wondering why that amount, it's so that I could pay the entire world debt off and still have $1 trillion left to play with. And that would be pretty great, wouldn't it? But yet, somehow, I don't have that amount of money. So maybe this argument isn't even an argument and should be discarded in full. But the theists keep using it because they think it works. I don't know why, but they just do. But let me go ahead and tentatively grant the entire argument in full. The greatest concept of God that I can think of is a God that is known to exist in the entire world without any ambiguity, because being known without any ambiguity is greater than being hidden. And I said that with zero support, just like you said all the other things with zero support. So my argument works just as well as your argument, which means that my God is greater than your God and must exist. Yet there are plenty of people that don't believe in God and people that believe in different concepts of God. Therefore, that's not true. And neither is this argument. You can't just believe things into existence or define them into existence. God exists because I say so. That's what this boils down to. This argument is fundamentally flawed, always has been, always will be. And for this one, I don't even think you should be skeptical of this one. You should say, this is such trash that it is false. This can't prove anything at all. Maybe there's a God, but this argument is just junk. Forget about it.
Wait, just because we can think of a greatest possible being doesn't mean it actually exists. Well, actually it does, because existing in reality is greater than just existing in the mind.
No, that's not how things work. Again, $304 trillion existing in my bank account is greater if it exists in reality than it exists in my mind. Why do I have that money? I should call my bank and check. Maybe I do. That'd be pretty cool. I'm pretty sure I'd get arrested or something. They'd have questions that I couldn't answer. Like, how did you get all this money? I'm like, I don't know. I was on YouTube complaining about God. The next thing I know, I got all this money. I don't know. How much tax do I owe? I'd like to pay off the global national debt, though. Could I do that, please? I still have $1 trillion left. I could use that to pay off some taxes, I guess. I'd still be left with an insane amount. What would be the tax on having that? Tax. Let's see. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm not going to go off on that tangent.
Okay, but I could use that to argue for the existence of the greatest possible
yes,
pizza. Well, actually, no, you can't, because the definition of pizza implies limitations, like a limited size.
No, it doesn't. You're just using the wrong definition of pizza.
And able to be broken. If you had a pizza that was indestructible, eternal, all-powerful, and infinitely large, it wouldn't be a pizza anymore. It would just be God.
No. It would be the pizza God. It's still a pizza.
Basically, if your pizza gets infinitely great, it'll turn into God.
So then the pizza does exist, and the pizza's God. Great. Lobsters are God. Laud is God. I'm God. You're God. Everybody's a God. God. This argument is completely broken. Throw it in the garbage.
There is also the argument from personal experience,
which is fundamentally flawed in every way, shape, and form, because everybody's personal experience of their God is selected to their particular religion of choice. So it doesn't prove anything at all. Because everyone thinks that they've had an experience about their God. So it doesn't show us which God is real. It doesn't show us anything. And, again, you're ignoring the fact that plenty of people don't have any experience of God whatsoever. So what does that mean? Then that means God isn't a thing to experience? Also, it might be that the experience is coming from just the way that your brain functions. In fact, that is probably what's happening. And that's a far more plausible explanation than God letting people feel it, even though they're experiencing the wrong version of God. But not always, because sometimes God doesn't feel like letting people feel its existence is there because reasons.
It may sound silly, but everyone does see the world through the lens of their own personal experience. A lot of people are convinced God exists either because of supernatural events they've seen, or because of answered prayers, or just coincidences in their life. So this is very good at convincing oneself that God exists, but not very good at convincing other people.
And it shouldn't be used to convince yourself at all. Your personal experience of your life is, well, it's a story to be told. It's a legend that will be a legend only when it ends. But the journey is what matters, and the events and the people that you touch absolutely matter. And you are a valuable, hopefully, member of this large community of humans. We help each other because there's nothing else to help us but each other. You've got my back, I've got yours. We've got each other's backs because there's nobody else that is holding us up. God isn't there to care. Or if it is, it acts like it isn't there to care. In either case, who cares? But when it comes to experiences that you personally cannot explain, you should simply set those aside and say, that's weird. But you know what? Weird things happen. And there's enough humans that weird things are bound to happen to some of us some of the time. But all you're doing is saying the experience I've had, I have chosen to think that that experience means this thing. Okay, but what evidence do you have that that's true? I could come to believe that I am a lobster. But that doesn't mean that I am a lobster. It just means I believe that I'm a lobster. Why do I believe I'm a lobster? That might be worth investigating and asking some professionals how that came to be. And maybe they'd scan my brain and try to figure out what the bleep is going on in there. And they might find maybe some particle is in there that shouldn't be. And they take it out and boom! Now I don't believe I'm a lobster anymore. That's pretty cool. And what if they did that for you in regards to your God belief, and poof, it was gone? They took out a little teeny piece of your brain, or they just, they just gave you a shot of something and changed your chemicals just a little bit, and that's it. You don't experience God anymore. Well, how could that be? Unless the whole thing was just in your brain and nowhere else. The best explanation is not one that comes from within, but one that is informed by observation and documentation of the gathered community that is around us. I must rely upon B.S. Lewis, Nerdy Rodent, Nitty, Calcia, whose name I keep changing all over the time, Captive Desk, etc. Oh, and Nitty. I have to rely on, and etc. Everyone else, those are the people in my chat right now. But I have to rely on them to observe if I have lost my mind. Because I might not recognize that I've lost my mind. But they hopefully will. And if they did, then hopefully they would try to get me help. Although doing so would be very difficult because they wouldn't necessarily know what to do. I guess the best that they could do would be to email me and hope that that gets to my brother or something like that. I don't know, whatever. But that's what happens, is all of us collectively have to be able to examine the thing in question in order to understand what it is. Given the fact that different people of different religions all report experiences of things that they call God, it can't be that it's the one true God, unless God doesn't care what religion you have. And also we have to account for the fact that there are people that are believers in God that do not have any experience of God and desperately want to, And we have to account for the fact that we can artificially induce God perceptions in people using the God helmet, and we can also do that using a placebo God helmet. Well, that tells us then that the origins of these experiences might not be divine. In fact, since we have no proof of the divine, it's more than likely these experiences are coming from our own brains. Because we base that on the observable reality that we all share rather than my own personal feelings on the matter. And yes, we as a society might get it wrong. There are things that people believe nowadays that seem to run contrary to reality. And they've been around for a long time, and I'm sure they're going to keep being around. There's people that believe the earth is flat, believe in all sorts of, alien abductions and whatever the nonsense. Some people even believe in Bigfoot. I don't know, whatever. And yes, they might have had some experience where they saw or felt something. But unless it's documented, observable, testable, and repeatable, then we don't know what it was. And having a belief based on nothing more than your own intuition and gut is the biggest disservice that you could do to yourself. Be skeptical.
The transcendental argument basically says without God, nothing can make sense at all. There's
the tag argument. This is pre-sup.
a lot of things we assume, but we can't prove. We assume that logic works.
No, we don't assume that logic works. We can demonstrably demonstrate that logic works. You're a nitwit.
Assume that there's consistency in the natural world.
I'll tentatively grant that one.
We assume that truth exists, but we
The truth is just whatever is real.
can't prove any of these things scientifically.
Sure we can. We can show logic works via formulas. That's scientific, if not logical in nature. Consistency in nature, you can infer that from the fact that it's been consistent, and we've shown that to be the case over and over again. There's no reason to think that it will change. See, the problem is it's not assumption anymore. It's an observation now. We've observed that it keeps being consistent. So until we have some indication that it's not going to be consistent anymore, then it's going to probably keep being consistent. And as far as the truth existing, whatever is real. Duh. None of these point to God. Even your tag is flawed. Dude, I can't believe it. You can't even do pre-sup right. He can't even do pre-sup right. Pre-sup's the easiest thing to do. You say that in order for logic to work, that there has to be a thing that is abstract, because logic is metaphysical, and the only thing that's metaphysical is God, and therefore God exists. So if you use logic, then God has to exist. There's the tag. I fixed it for you. You can't even do pre-sup. You Bow, 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 oh yeah! I'm a turkey. Nobody in chat said you're going insane, Deconverted Man. Shame to all of you! Shame! Shame, I say! Not a single one was like, well, he's lost it. Oh, I guess because I do that sometimes in other videos. Huh? How would you know if I really lost it? I guess nobody would know if I really lost it. Oh, great! Everything sucks now. I blame B.S. Lewis for it. I blame Nerdy Wrote It. I blame everybody. I especially Captive Desk. You know what you did. You summoned the alien demons and they kidnapped my brain, and then they replaced it with Nitty's brain, and now I'm Nitty, and Nitty is me, and also that person whose name I can't remember, and because the thing and anyways, so he can't do precept right.
Because these are the basic assumptions we need to make to even do science. All of these things make sense if we presuppose a worldview where God exists, because
Nope.
then we can say all these other things are grounded in the mind of God.
How do you know that, though? And why are these things being in the mind of God make them any more or less real than they are without God? It's just absolute it's a zero-sum game. There's nothing here. I hate tag. It's completely broken. There's nothing valid about it, and it's just circular. It has assumed the conclusion you want to be true. These things are real because reality is real. We don't need anything else to explain it. They work because they work. There's just a brute fact of the nature of reality. There you go. But you can't explain God's mind. Okay, well, if you can't explain God's mind, then you can't have a God. How about that? Yeah, that's the new tag. Oh, I've been doing this for an hour. I'm not even done. Oh, we're almost done. Oh, thank
But
goodness.
if God doesn't exist, then we have no justification
Oh,
for
no.
the things we assume, and everything just collapses. There is the
But God doesn't exist, so these things work just fine without God. So that's kind of weird. But which God? See, Precept also doesn't. None of these really point to any specific God. Notice that. Precept is just broken. It's just fundamentally flawed in every way, shape, and form that it can be. And hey, somebody at some point was like, "Hey, Deacon Birdman, cover Precept." So I just did. I covered it. Done. There's nothing I can really say about it. It's heads I win, tails you lose. It is a game that you don't play and that you still lose. It is just fundamentally broken, nothing but bald assertions and big giant circular argumentation. That's all it is. Don't do Precept, not even once. This is your brain. This is Precept. This is your brain on Precept. Any questions? I didn't show any images there, but just pretend that there was a frying pan and an egg. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, then you're probably too young. And never mind. I'm back to stupid consciousness. Oh, God. Why?
argument from the mind, or consciousness, which says consciousness cannot be explained naturally.
Even if true, that doesn't make it that doesn't prove anything. Even if it's true, I can't explain X, therefore Z is the definition of an appeal to personal ignorance. Ah! My brain. My voice is gone. Why did I decide to do this? Why? I hate everything.
Generally, the atheist explanation of consciousness is that our brain is just a very advanced biological machine.
That's not even the atheist. The atheist? What are you talking about, the atheist explanation? What the fuck does that mean? The atheist? What do you think? No, the scientific explanation. That's what you mean. There is no atheist explanation. That's not what atheism does. It's not a thing. It's not a worldview. You moronic nitwit. I hate your face and everything about it. You suck. Your horse sucks. Your computer. You just. Also, your arguments are bad. I can't even think of insults. Whatever. Poopy head. That's what it is. Yeah. Screw this. That's so stupid. Oh my God, it's so broken. I'm sorry. I know.
Okay, so yeah, we don't understand consciousness, or you think it can't be explained, therefore X is true. This is nothing more than appeal to ignorance. But it's not the atheist explanation, because that is incoherent. It's the way that consciousness is because we have a brain. We've never observed consciousness without a brain. So yeah, if God doesn't have a brain, then God doesn't have consciousness. If God doesn't have a brain, God don't have a mind. There you go. So yeah, because we've never observed consciousness to exist on its own. I'm not even sure how that would work. One way to look at consciousness, and I'm no expert, but definitely this guy isn't, would be what's called an emergent property. When you have simple systems become more complex, that's an emergent property. So traffic is an emergent property. Now, traffic doesn't have to be limited to just cars. It could be pedestrians, whatever. But let's just imagine cars, because when I think traffic, I think car traffic, whatever. So you have a freeway, has 4 lanes in both directions. You have 4 lanes going north, 4 lanes going south. Let's just focus on the north side for now. Somebody gets a flat tire and pulls over. That lane is effectively dead to everybody that wanted to use that, because, well, cars occupying some of that lane, and they put up little flares and little warning signs and whatnot so you can slow down and move into the other lane. Well, what's that going to do? Well, you had to slow down. So the person behind you has to slow down, and the person behind them has to slow down. And also you're merging. So people have to slow down even more. And so then some people might think, I wonder what's going on. I need to look at that. And so they will slow down. And that will cause even more people to slow down. And that's traffic. It emerged because the components of it made it possible. And if you start removing components of it, suddenly no more traffic. You move that accident off the road, suddenly people can use all 4 lanes again, and zoom, 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 everybody speeds up again. But it takes a little bit for it to clear, because it takes a little bit for everybody to be able to go back up to speed again. But the emergence of the traffic is only possible because of the complexity of the system itself. And that's one way to think about consciousness. I've read and heard things about consciousness that just baffle the bleep out of me. The latest, well, and it's probably been said before, the latest thing that I was hearing was that consciousness is probably just an illusion, that it's not even a thing, that we just think it's a thing, but it's not. And this was doing to deal with brain hemisphere studies. They asked the person what they saw. They saw one object. The one hand wrote something else. They don't even, and one side, and they're 2 different people. And so that's kind of weird, and that's kind of cool from their perspective. He said it's that, like, it doesn't seem any different to him. There's some things that he has to do differently, but he doesn't feel different. But anyways, so yeah, consciousness is just an emergent property. But anyways, this is a logical fallacy, because basically you're saying we don't understand X, therefore Z, so it's an appeal to ignorance.
But unlike our minds, machines can be reduced to their parts. Now, our brain can be reduced to its brain cells, but that's not the same as the experience of consciousness. For example, you could find a part of our brain that sees the color yellow, but that's not the same as the experience of seeing yellowness.
Well, if you took that part of your brain, you wouldn't be able to experience yellowness at all. So you don't understand neuroscience very well, do you? I don't either, but definitely this guy doesn't. You know what would be interesting is show us some neuroscience stuff. That'd be kind of interesting. At least I'd be learning something. But basically, again, it's just I don't understand. Therefore, God, blah, or whatever. I don't know.
You cannot study consciousness scientifically
Sure you can. People do it all the time. Now you're just lying again. Stop lying.
because one can only observe one's own consciousness.
Wrong. They have already built at least one machine that can record dreams. It doesn't do it very well yet, but it's been done. So yeah, no, it can be done. Absolutely can be done. So you're just wrong.
For example, there is no way to know if we all see the same colors.
Yeah, no, there is kind of a way to know that. We could measure that. We could do that. It wouldn't be difficult to do that. But yeah, just say stuff that you don't know and just assert things without proof. That's all this video is now. Also, not everybody can see yellow, so I don't know.
Who knows? Maybe yellow looks like this to me. For all you know, you could be the only person who exists.
No, hard sophilism is stupid, and I've always hated it because I can't imagine things that I'm not aware of. It's just, things are really real outside of me. And it's silly to think otherwise. It just is. It's just dumb. Reality is real, and if you can't agree with that, I can't help you. You're a lost cause. But if you have to go this abstract to try to somehow, I'm not sure how this gets to God, by the way, but if you have to go this route, then actually this proves that you should be a skeptic, not a believer.
A single atom is not conscious. Two atoms are not conscious. A bunch of atoms are not conscious. So even if you have a complex system, it's still just a complex arrangement of atoms which are not conscious. So
yeah, that's that. Yeah, but at some point when they do things, then they form because the activity has to be there. You're leaving out parts. I bet Answers in Atheism will cover this better than I do, but whatever. I just hate this. I hate everything about this. This is just, I don't understand X, therefore Z. That's all this is. Big old giant appeal to ignorance. And if Answers in Atheism, I know you're listening to this. You better say Deconverted Man said that this is an appeal to ignorance. Somebody tell him to say that. All right. Anyways.
Where does consciousness come from?
The brain.
So this isn't exactly an argument for God, but it is an argument for the human soul.
No, it's not either of those. Because the soul is not demonstrably demonstrated. So that's what you need to do. And saying, well, I can't explain consciousness, therefore the soul. But when we take apart the brain, you stop working the way that we're working. So wherein lies the soul then? It completely falls apart.
Because it shows you need something immaterial to explain consciousness.
How could something immaterial interact with something that is material? Wouldn't that be detectable at some level? Where is the neuroreceptor for the soul in the brain? How does that work?
Then there's the argument from mathematics, which says,
oh my goodness. Oh no. 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 I'm not doing it. No. No. No, I don't want to do the math. I don't want to do the math. No, I don't want to. You can't make me. No, I don't. No, I'm done. No, screw it. No, I'm done. No, I'm done. I'm done. No, I quit. I'm done. I don't want to. You can't force me to. What's that, producer? My audience really wants me to cover this. Look, I've been going for an hour. I'll do part 2, okay? What do you mean? Let's see, 7 minutes, 7, 8, 9. He's got 2 more minutes left. That's at least another hour of content. All right, we'll see you guys and girls and robots next time in part 2. And I still need to make the video where I explain the thing, and I have to put links to cannibalism in the description, and I don't know. Man, what are we talking about anymore? cannibalism equals God. If there are cannibals, then God exists. There you go. There's cannibals, therefore God exists. Actually, you know what? He missed the best argument of all time. The greatest argument for God's existence that's ever been made or ever will be made. And it argues, of course, for the Judeo-Christian God, but it's true and it's real, and I'll show you that argument because he can't make any decent arguments. So this explains what happened to Jesus. So Jesus was eaten by his followers. So anyways, the early Christians claimed resurrection, but none of their opponents could produce the dead body. So if you wanted to say there's no historical Jesus, you can, but you should know your venturing into tinfoil hat conspiracy. So that's nice. So here's the thing. It would take a single person about 3 months to eat a person. But they had more followers, not just 11, but, because 12 followers, I don't know if you count Jesus, I don't know. But it would take 1 week for 11 people to eat him up completely. And in John 6:56, he says, "He that eats my flesh and drinks my blood dwells in me and I in him." So there you go. That's what Jesus said. So why wouldn't they eat him? Well, they claimed he came back for the dead, but he did in them, because once you eat them, he dwells in them. They're not lying. He is alive in them. They consumed his flesh. Oh, nom nom. There you go. No body. Bones can be made into a stew. Yum. So the only possible answer that it isn't zombie Jesus, it is that his followers ate him. Can't disprove it. Nom nom nom. Ergo, come some finis blas blah 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 fin yeah. Uh, 9,000. Over 9,000. That's the answer to that question. Over 9,000 lobsters.